What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast. And one thing I want to focus on today is a liquidity crisis. And what I'm going to show you, you might ask yourself, what does this have to do with a liquidity crisis? What is a liquidity crisis? Well, we're going to see that when you see these banks, when you see institutions start to tighten their lending, where they don't want to loan out to people, where there is the economy in a sense has kind of uh, stopped, meaning like people aren't, they're not willing to create more loans to give out to people, and it may be because they don't trust that people may pay it back. There's a variety of reasons behind it, but anyhow, there is a liquidity crunch that comes to the forefront. Okay, and there's a variety of factors. I'm not going to pretend like I know them all because I don't. But the fact of the matter is, when that liquidity crisis comes and you see institutions and banks scrambling um, for a solution, where do you turn to? But before I get there, I'll save that for the end. Before I get there, I want to look at some of the issues that are happening, which I foresee being something that creates a liquidity crisis. Now, we see here 61 container ships that are stuck waiting off of California. Okay, that's the previous record was like 41, I believe. And the next record was 44, and now this is 61. And this is off of Long Beach, okay? How are people 61 container ships waiting to get off the to get whatever products they have in those containers off so it can go be delivered to the markets? What kind of uh backlog do you think that's going to cause? And people, when they go to the store, they're saying, well, there's not that much here. And then they're seeing the increase in prices because there's just not enough a supply coming in because of all the breakdowns in the supply chain. Okay, you're creating a crisis in this manner. And there's a crunch for money, there's a crunch for being able to have enough inflows and outflows. That's the reality. But what happens when all this happens and people are scrambling and they're asking themselves, well, I don't have enough money to pay for all of this, because the inflation is taking place. How am I, and my wages aren't sufficient for all of this? What happens? Well, here comes the politicians and they're going to give you your money through stimulus checks, through all sorts of ways to try to also buy your vote for the next election. But there's no free lunch. And what happens when they have this kind of policy? Well, they're going to raise your taxes. Taxes will for sure go up. And we see this in the UK. Taxes will go up to fund government spending. And this is from Lynette Zhang. Boris Johnson's plan to hike taxes to fund the National Health Service was voted through Parliament. Okay, it's all part. If you're gonna use this kind of monetary and fiscal policy, you best expect, just because they're giving you a mere $1,200 that you can probably spend in a month with bills and groceries and etc. They'll overcharge you 10 times when it comes to taxes, and these taxes are not here just temporarily. They're gonna stay, and you're gonna feel a crunch then. So that's why I know, yeah, you could use the $1,200, but at the same time, there's no free lunch, and the consequences of that will be 10 times worse later on. So, folks, I'm trying to awaken you to the reality of these things. It's all creating a crisis that's brewing. And aside from that, we have also these mandates. Here we see that Italy will require all health passports. This is led by Prime Minister Mario Draghi, which moves to set the toughest requirements in Europe. So, not only if you don't go along with this, you're probably not going to have a health passport and you're probably not going to be able to work. So, what then? folks, I don't know if I'm getting through to you to show you the severity of this crisis. And I just did a video on Evergrande, which is equivalent to the Lehman Brothers. Now, whether that creates a crisis globally, we'll see. But this is a company in China, which is very large, okay, and it's in the second biggest economy of the world. So if something happens there, it could have some ripple effects. And here we see, I mean, what I'm showing you is just a fraction of what's actually happening. But even though all this is happening, it has such big consequences. And when that liquidity crisis comes, okay, where banks are scrambling to get money, whether it be from the Federal Reserve or whatever it may be from, they're going to look for a solution. And that's why I talk a lot about the digital asset XRP. And if this is your first time hearing that, I highly motivate you to go do your own research on it. But it solves the issue of liquidity. And not only that, they like to call themselves the lender of last resort. And they've also created a lending program in which the customer can borrow now and pay later. And I'm thinking this is all set up for this liquidity crisis. And this digital asset is one of the most useful fundamental assets in the space. And they have ties with central banks, institutions, countries around the world. And it is profoundly one of the most impressive projects. And I believe that when that time comes of that liquidity crisis, XRP is going to be the solution for these banks, for these institutions. Bet your bottom dollar on that. And so I've taken the position that I want to show more people current events and how this leads to the next step. But best believe that digital assets are a part of that. I hope this episode has brought you some value. Like and subscribe, comment below, share this video. Let this word get out to other people. I know my channel is small, but I'm doing my best because I see the urgency in what's happening and people need to be awakened. I hope this episode has brought you some value. Thank you for watching. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.